Oh, China. So you guys know the whole concept of Thucydides Trap?
We've got to step back and look at all of China's activities.
The next president will face a quandary often called the Thucydides Trap.
We can't continue to allow China to rip our country, and that's what they're doing.
There's a book coming out, in fact, by a professor at Harvard, Graham Allison, the dean of the Belfer Center, titled "The Thucydides Trap."
The challenge with China is the Thucydian trap that people talk about.
Thucydides Trap.
Thucydides Trap.
Thucydides Trap.
The Thucydides Trap.
Thucydides Trap.
Thucydides Trap.
Thucydides Trap.
Professor Allison coined this term to describe the strategic dilemma and dangers that occur when a rising power rivals a ruling power.
There is no such thing as the so-called Thucydides trap in the world. But should major countries time and again make the mistakes of strategic miscalculation, they might create such traps for themselves.
I don't know. Are you guys sure about that? Are you guys sure China hasn't completely f***ed that up already?
To further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it.
It's the 82-kilometre artery between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and 40% of all US container traffic passes through the Panama Canal. It's been in Donald Trump's sights since even before he returned to the White House. Now his Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth has announced a deal with the Panamanian government, authorising the deployment of US troops along this strategic waterway.
So that's something you said, we're taking back the canal. China's had too much influence. Obama and others let them creep in. We, along with Panama, are pushing them out, sir.
Quick refresher on the Panama Canal, just in case you need it.
The Panama Canal is one of history's great feats of engineering. Connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific, the canal represented a major change in trade between East and West, saving time for many states and damaging the economies of others. It was finished by the United States in 1914, and these lands in Panama around the canal were under US sovereignty until 1999, because in 1977 President Jimmy Carter had agreed to return it to Panama in return for exactly nothing. But given how useful controlling the canal was, especially during the Cold War, why did the United States do this? Why did the USA give up the Panama Canal for free?
That's a good question. A painful question to think about, actually. And 1999 wasn't even long ago. Drop a comment, let me know, guys. Why did we give the Panama Canal away for literally nothing?
What are the most important takeaways that we need to understand about the Panama Canal?
Well, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, China has too much influence over the Panama Canal and America's going to take it back. And that's exactly what I was charged to do, what we're continuing to do. China's influence cannot control our own backyard, especially a critical waterway, key terrain like the Panama Canal. You mentioned 40% of ships are U.S. ships. 75% are going to or from a port. So we were able to secure two historic agreements. One with the Panama Canal Authority, that our ships, our military vessels and auxiliary vessels will travel first and free through that Panama Canal. And then we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Defense Secretary over there and the President that established a robust and growing U.S. presence, right? You need to secure that key terrain. So Fort Sherman will reopen jointly with the Panamanians, a jungle school, and we're going to have a larger U.S. presence at the invitation of Panama, working with them to keep the communist Chinese out. If we can't use that waterway in a key contingency, then China has an advantage. Other presidents have allowed us, we've been sort of asleep at the wheel. President Trump has said we need to be serious about our own backyard. That includes a place like the Panama Canal. And I want to thank President Molino, a pro-Trump, pro-America president of Panama, who's sticking his neck out against communists whose influence was real there, Maria. We could see it. You could feel it. The communist Chinese want to control politicians. They're building infrastructure projects. They want to surveil. They want to take that canal. President Trump says, not on our watch, and we're fighting back.
That's unbelievable. When I spoke with President Trump in an interview last month, he said that all the signage around the canal was all in Chinese. When you're going into it, it's all Chinese signs. When you're coming out of it, there's all Chinese signs. That was sort of one piece of color that indicates how dominant they've been.
Correct. They're building a tunnel underneath the canal they're paying for. What could that be used for? Surveillance of submarines, of ships, bridges over the top, cranes within. We flew by their cranes in that port, antennas all over them. What are those used to do? We didn't see, by now, they're removing a lot of that signage, but removing signage is not enough. You've got to remove the insidious influence. And in getting these agreements signed, it was a big effort across our DOD with their leaders, but they know that by coming closer to the United States and allowing additional joint U.S. presence, that's pushing out nefarious, malicious Chinese influence. The Chinese didn't like what happened in Panama this week, not at all, because this is a return of U.S. leadership, peace through strength, and the course was charted by President Trump.
Do you expect this deal between BlackRock and C.K. Hutchison to go forward? China doesn't want it to go forward. I mean, President Trump said he'd rather deal with BlackRock, an American company, than a Hong Kong-based company.
Well, I agree with the president. And in sitting down with President Molino of Panama, they had just received the audit, which showed that Hutchinson, the Chinese firm, had hundreds of millions of dollars that they owed. They were going to reveal they had not paid. So this was not a good deal for Panama, whereas the BlackRock deal is more straightforward and an American company. So the Panama would like it. President Trump has said we need it. Combine that with kicking out the Belt and Road Initiative, which Secretary of State Rubio got on his first trip in February, and we're getting to the point where Panama and the U.S. are shoulder to shoulder saying, get out, China, and that serves us.
China, with that much surveillance surrounding the Panama Canal, the main route that we use to take our military naval vessels between the east and west coasts of our own country, how much power would that give them? In a conflict, in a kinetic conflict. That alone, in my mind, makes it a non-negotiable, man. Now, China loves winning favors by dishing out cash via loans through their Belt and Road Initiative. But honestly, more and more often, that entire infrastructure project seems like an illusion.
What if I told you that China has spent more on infrastructure abroad than the United States did on the Marshall Plan? Over $1 trillion. The Belt and Road Initiative, the largest infrastructure project in human history, was supposed to reshape global trade. Highways cutting through mountains, railways linking continents, ports transforming sleepy coastlines into global trade hubs. A total of 148 countries signed on, eager to share in the promise of economic transformation. But now, the cracks are showing. Half-finished megaprojects, skyrocketing debt, protests from communities left behind. What was once hailed as China's grand vision for the future is now tangled in financial crises, political tensions, and growing resistance.
Kenya's government officials questioned whether the country received good value for money because CRBC was awarded the contract without any other competition. What's more, in 2013, when the World Bank published a study into building the standard gauge railway in Kenya, they found there was no economic or financial case to do so.
This 33-story building, slated to house Thailand's Auditor General's offices, collapsed during the Myanmar earthquake, March 28, 2025. Likely the most videoed building collapse ever. But how did this beautiful building design go from the bragging pride of the Chinese contractor to being topped off, like you see here, and built to this lovely final shape? How did it go from this to collapsing like this in the middle of an earthquake that was 600 miles away when it should have easily stood its ground? I mean, look, even this building here in Myanmar survived. It toppled over a little bit, but it didn't come collapsing down.
How is China supposed to usurp some form of U.S. hegemony around the world if this is the quality of product that they're delivering to the countries that get involved with them via their Belt and Road Initiative? I mean, I guess it goes to show you that you can't buy your way into being a world superpower, but this is what really pisses me off. This entire Belt and Road Initiative is a scheme. China runs smaller countries up on debt accrued through predatory loans in exchange for poorly built infrastructure using poor quality materials loaned out at an inflated price. Then the IMF can come in and say, oh, I'm so sorry, were you irresponsible with your money? Do you need a loan that comes with some austerity measures? So China gets the economic stimulus, Chinese workers get the jobs, Chinese companies get the contracts, and the country that they're partnered with gets straddled with debt. And if the IMF doesn't make China good, China can come in and say, oh, what natural resources do you guys have? China's gonna find out the hard way that that's not how you become an emerging superpower in the 21st century. That's how you destroy your reputation on the world stage. Hey, you guys rock. I appreciate you. If you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button. Share the video with someone you know. It really helps me with the algorithm. I'll see you guys in the next one.